Uh, a very good morning. I hope I'm audible. I think there were some technical issues in the beginning and I missed the initial part, but in the end, all well. And I welcome you all for this webinar. And thank you, Dr. Shenoy, for inviting me for this webinar. And I also thank the Association of Central India Academy of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery for organizing this event. So today we are going to talk about radiation therapy in head and neck cancers. My whole this presentation will be based on in general outline about radiation therapy as such, what it means and what are different options we have. Then I will touch in general about what are the indications in head and neck cancers, and then after presentation we are open for any question answer session. So let's begin with the radiation therapy in head and neck cancer. Next. Next. So as we know, we are living in this Maharashtra and Vidarbha region, and not only in this Vidarbha region, almost in entire India, the head and neck malignancy is one of the most common malignancy. And in our region, we frequently see so many patients coming to our OPDs with different head and neck malignancies. The problem with management of head and neck malignancy is always a challenging for surgeon, for radiation oncologist as well, because there are so many structures which are present in this region, and many critical structures, organs, which make the access to the tumor and its lymph nodes very difficult, and it is always a complex environment and a challenging. Normally, for any head and neck cancers, a multimodality treatment approach is there. And if we talk about radiotherapy, it can be in the setting of definitive, adjuvant, recurrent, as per presentation of the patient. Next, keep on TV. Yeah. So whenever we are talking about radiation, there are so many misconceptions in the mind of people around us. Even we receive prescription with so many, even calls are there. Like people think it is some sort of shock or some sort of current we are giving. It may be a light. Next, please. So, or when you deliver radiation, it may burn your surface and it will be something like you are burning the entire structure, which is all misconceptions. Next, please. So what are these radiations? Normally, radiations we are seeing in day-to-day life, it is just electromagnetic waves, a photon, which is a packet of energy. We are using ionizing radiation. Normally, you always see in your diagnostic setting the X-rays which you use for different diagnoses in the X-ray, in the CT scan. It is same with a higher energy. Next, please. So like X-ray, as I told you, this is a higher energy. So normally X-ray in diagnostic setting is in kilovolt range. Here we use in megavolt range. Now, once we are in the megavolt range, it becomes more penetrating deep inside the body. And as it penetrates, it kills the cancer cells. Next, please. So normally when we are using radiation, our aim is either to cure the patient or to improve the quality of the life of the patients. So the setting can be as a curative setting, or it can be a palliative setting in which you are taking you're taking important you're taking care of all those problems related to the quality of life, like bone pain or hemorrhage, whatever is the presentation as per disease. Next, please. So in radical settings, whenever we are using radiation, we are using for small tumors when radiation becomes the only form of treatment, without any adjuvant setting, like there will be no surgery, there will be no chemotherapy, and or sometimes chemoradiation can be there, but radiation will become the main treatment modality and it will cure the patients. It is also becoming very important in today's era when we talk about organ preservation, because nobody today want to lose their organ. It's very difficult to live with, uh, suppose you take out an entire tongue or entire larynx is taken out, and then you go for day-to-day living, it becomes difficult. So rehabilitation is always a issue. So if you are going for as a single modality, it maintains good quality of life. And as it is very obvious, it is very good in cosmetic setting also. Next, please. Now, there are many patients who present in advanced stage. We know that in our setting, in our Indian scenario, particularly, patients always present late. They never come in early stage. So when patient present in late stage, most of the patient needs to undergo surgery. And once they have undergone surgery, there are certain important points in the histopathology report which indicates that adjuvant radiation is needed, but you can take it as that since it is advanced stage, most of the patient will require post-op radiation therapy. So this radiation therapy can be used in the adjuvant setting in post-op scenario. Next, please. And now there are certain category of patient or certain set of patients who report to you in the last stage when disease has already gone into the fourth stage, and it is very difficult to now treat such patients. Now the whole attention diverts towards palliation of the symptom and to improve the quality of life. So in such patients, like relief of symptom, suppose if there is a bony involvement, and bony, we know that once there is a bony involvement, it is a very severe pain. So it gives excellent, it is an excellent modality in cases of bony metastasis where you can palliate the bone pain. Then any symptom of due to compression, cord compression, or any morbidity, and even if there is a brain metastasis or metastasis to other organ, you can improve the survival and you can prolong the lifespan. Next, please. So normally when we deliver radiation, we always think what this radiation is causing, because in our mind, we know that when we are using any pharmaceutical agent like drugs, it has the certain pharmacokinetics, and we know very well. But people always wonder what this radiation is causing. It is invisible, how it is going inside and what it is doing. So it's a very simple thing. When the radiation goes inside, it acts on the DNA and it breaks the DNA, double-stranded bonds of the DNA. And in the environment of tumor, these DNAs are very unstable and they lack all those repair environment. And due to this damage, they could not repair, and slowly the cancer cell dies. Next, please. Normally, we say there are two actions of radiation. One are direct, one is indirect. Direct means radiation is directly acting on the bonds and breaking it. And indirect action, it creates very reactive substance adjacent to the DNA. And that reactive substance then causes damage to the DNA by breaking the hydrogen bond. So both ways are operating simultaneously, although indirect actions are more than the direct actions. Next, please. Now, once we are through with this, now it is important to understand that how this radiation is being delivered. So now the option with us is that radiation can be delivered by external source, when we call external radiotherapy or external beam radiotherapy. Various names are there like EBRT, RT, external RT, so many names we always use, but it means externally means the radiation source is away from your body. The radiation used mostly is photon, then there is electron, and sometimes neutrons and protons are also used, although Neutron is not in use. Protons recently has come up. Then these radiations can be used as a when we can place it inside the body or a cavity or directly inside the tumor, and there we call it brachytherapy or internal radiation therapy. So in that, once you are putting into the cavity, it is intracavitary. When we are putting into the directly into the tumor or the tissue, it is interstitial. It can be placed inside the lumen, or it can be placed directly over the surface as a surface mold. Next, please. Now, when we are delivering a radiation therapy, it is a big team which is working in the background along with the radiation oncologist. Of course, the radiation oncologist is the main person who is directing the entire program of treatment of radiation therapy. But in the background, some medical physicists are involved who are taking part of the dosimetry aspect of the machine quality. Then there are radiation therapists who are basically technicians who are the machine operators. Then oncology nurses are there to help the patients. So it forms a well organized big team of radiation when we are talking about a radiation treatment to any patient. Next, please. So you can see on your screen, this is the most common linear accelerator, which we now know that this is the external beam source, which is being utilized. There might be chances you have seen the older version of this machine, which was Cobalt. Cobalt was a machine in which radionuclide was placed inside, and then it was delivering the radiation therapy. But that is our old technology with so many limitations. Now newer generations of machines are there. They are so safe, they generate radiation directly when you switch on the machine and give electricity to the machine. And there are various different options available. You can generate different photons, electrons, different energies, different techniques, which I will come up in the next few slides. So it is a very versatile or type all-in-one machine. Next, please. Now, when we talk about radiation, just to give you some impression of the past, way back in 17th, 18th century when it was discovered, initially it was discovered as a thing which used to glow when it put into the dark as a radioluminescent substance, and people were very fascinated about it. Next, please. Next, please. So way back, people started using it and painting the dial of the watch because it used to throw light when you put it into the dark. And at that point of time, they never realized that it is such a dangerous substance. And when they used to paint the dial of the watch, they used to sharpen the brush with the help of their saliva. And these was slowly getting deposited in their jaw. And uh, when it you start to get deposited into the jaw, they slowly start developing different malignancies of head and neck cancers. And then people realize that it is such a toxic thing. You cannot just you put it anywhere in your mouth or anywhere in your hand. Next, please. The pioneer work of Madame Curie or Marie Curie was there, which ultimately established the physical aspects, the details of radiations, what we know today. And next, please. And somewhere around 1951, the first cobalt machine was made. And to give you just a simple overview, the first machine which was made was such a crude machine that you have to just lie down under the machine. And machine was not capable. It was having just a shutter mechanism so that you open the shutter and radiation will come over your body. So suppose if you want to give radiation from the anterior end, the patient will lie supine, and once radiation is over, then you have to rotate the patient, turn posterior, and then you are able to give posterior radiation. So it was a very crude machine. Just you open shutter and radiation is delivered. Naturally, we can expect there was no quality, nothing there. Next, please. From there, the radiation keep on evolving, and now we are in this era where it is on its peak. So initially, when we used to plan a patient, there was a blind method that whatever part, whatever region you are planning, you have to just put a surface marker corresponding to your area of interest. Then people realized that we can take help of bony points, and they started taking 2D version like orthogonal X-ray was started. So with the help of orthogonal X-rays, they used to localize the bony point and indirectly the tumor site. Thereafter, they realized that it is not so accurate if you go with a bony point. So the 3D version came with the CT scan, and nowadays all treatments are based on this. So a CT scan is being taken, a 3D reconstruction is being done, and in an actual environment where you can visualize the tumor in all different coordinates, you can plan the patient. Next, please. So the basic principle of radiation is to reproduce, because treatment is always for 1.5 months. It's a long process and repetitive. So patient has to come every day, come into the treatment position, take treatment, go back. So we need to be same throughout the session. So the first part, the most important part is to immobilize, means we have to put some device so that patient cannot move, and the patient position or setup is reproduced every day same. So a custom made immobilization device is normally being prepared for each patient. And this is the starting point. Next, please. Next, please. There are different types of custom made. Now, once we have made the custom-made immobilization device, we take the patient for the CT scanning. A CT scan is performed, which is same what we do in the normal day-to-day practice, with a difference that we call it simulation scan. And this simulation scan is fed to the planning system. Next, please. Now, in today's era, since there are development in all places, so we have PET-CT, we have MRI, we have so many sophisticated machine with us and so much of information. So every information can be utilized. So PET-CT simulation or PET-CT data, the MRI data, all are taken and fed into the system. Next, please. Once all these data are fed, they can be fused together. Next, please. And we fuse it together to have the maximum information available at different site. Although in the screen you are seeing different site, but in head and neck it is same. It is just a difference of site. So you come across the tumor with all the information, exactly where it is, what is its different spread, metastasis. Next, please. Next, please. You can see the image of user. And once we have all the information available, then the process of contouring starts. Contouring is a simple process in which each and every organ and targets are being delineated by radiation oncologist. Now, by visualizing the different cuts in the CT, the cuts are sometimes taken at 2 mm interval, sometimes at 1 mm interval. The tumor and the normal organs are reconstructed. Next, please. You can see different organs or tumors are being shown here, how they are reconstructed. And slice by slice, once you are reconstructing, it gives your 3D image. It becomes three-dimensional. Next, please. Now there are treatment planning system available, which can whatever prescription you offer. So there are different techniques available with us. Mm, I will go in short about techniques later on, but there are different techniques available through which you can treat these tumors. So based on your technique, how you are planning, the system gives you approximate dose distribution, how the dose will be distributed across the tumor site or area of interest, which you can see here. Next, please. Next, please. So The beams are placed by computer nowadays. They are so automated that they give you overview of entire treatment beforehand. You can do different measurement, and you can see your result beforehand before applying this radiation therapy to the patient. Next, please. You can see nowadays they are such a sophisticated treatment planning system that they can shape the beam. You can see the shaping of the beam even across the vital organs. Next, please. Once all these processes are complete, then there are verification system. Now the therapy has so advanced that when you are planning a treatment for any patient, you need to know beforehand that your machine is also performing well, and whatever you are seeing on your computer, whatever goals you have planned, they are actually achievable. So there are many gadgets available. There are phantoms, there are artificial sensors, there are verification different techniques available, which beforehand measures and see the actual delivery when it is happening. Next, please. Then there are daily verification methods. Different methods are there. I will tell you in short later on. So with the verification method, you are very sure that you are delivering the radiation perfectly at the point of interest. Next, please. Now, any radiation is hardly, I have written here for 10 minutes, but believe me, it is not even 2 minutes. Normally what happens, you have to set the patient, take some image, verify it, and then deliver the radiation. So normally the switch on and switch off happens for only hardly 1 to 2 minutes. It's a very short, small procedure. The usual treatment day is Monday to Friday, 5 days in a week with 2 days off. This is as per radiobiology. And normally treatment happens for 5 to 6 weeks depending on the tumor site and the dose. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So now, depending upon your intentions, what is your intent of treatment? Radiation dose is planned. So if you are going for a radical dose in a curative setting, your radiation will be somewhere around 60 to 70, 75 gray, depending on situation. Or if you are in a adjuvant setting, then 50 to 60 gray. Or sometimes when you are, as I told you, you are in a palliative settings, then your radiation will be somewhere like 8 gray single fraction or 20 gray 5 fraction, or sometimes 30 gray in 10 fraction, like that, just for palliation of your symptom. Next, please. Now, radiation is normally fractionated. Fractionated means multiple settings are there, sittings, which you call that you are going to receive 10 sitting, 20 sitting, 30 sitting as per. So these sittings are nothing but fractionations. So when we deliver radiation in a single shot, it becomes too toxic and it becomes very difficult for the normal organs to recover. That's why what we do, we fractionate it. We divide into smaller size and we deliver over a period of time, so that at the same time when tumor is being getting killed and the normal organs which are present in the surrounding region, they are being taken care. They can recover from the any injury if it might happen. So normal conventional schedule can be normally 180 centigrade to 200 centigrade 5 days in a week. This is normal. And next, please. So accordingly, whenever we're talking about radiation, radiation can be seen in different aspects. So when we are talking about fractionations, it can be called normal fractionations radiotherapy or normal fractionation. It can be hyperfractionations. It can be accelerated fractionation, or it can be hypofractionations. Next, please. Now, normal fractionation is the default one. So whenever anybody tells you about radiation therapy is happening, it means it is normal fractionation until otherwise told. So it is being routinely used, and here we use 180 to 200 centigrade per fraction. Next, please. Now, there are some situations when you see your tumor cells are relatively, although radio sensitive, but there is a problem. They are very rapidly dividing. So their doubling time is high. In that situations, suppose if you are going with your normal fractionation schedule, which happens every day, 5 days in a week. So you do not expect that the number of killings will be equal to the number of doubling. Sometimes the number of doublings exceeds the number of killing. In that situation, although your radiotherapy is working, but number of cells killed are not equal. Still it is growing. So you see a tumor will keep on growing or it will remain static. In those situations, when we expect such type of tumors, we go for hyperfractionations. Hyperfractionations means you are giving more number of fractionations. You are increasing, it may be like 2 fractions per day, one in the morning, one in the evening. Now the problem with the hyperfractionations is once you are using hyperfractionations, you are giving more radiations, and more radiation if you are giving, so your early reaction will increase. Patient will have more problem, more early reaction will happen, and it will increase sometimes too much, it becomes violent. So hyperfractionations are although a good thing, but not much in use because the problems with the early reactions become intense and it is sometimes becomes very difficult to control. Next, please. Now, there are certain situations where not only you want to increase the number of fractions per day, you want to decrease the total duration of treatment also. You don't want the treatment to go on for say 6 week or 8 week. In that case, we use accelerated hyperfractionations. It means you are giving the treatment very fast and at the same time in a shorter interval of time. And again, as I told you in the last slide, that these regimes, although sounds very good, but very difficult to control in practical situations because reactions and the problems associated with are very intense and it becomes difficult to control at some point and often leads to break in treatment. So they are not in normal use. There are some papers which have shown in certain cases of hypopharynx and some laryngeal tumors, they have shown this accelerated fraction chart regimes as useful with some benefit. But in day-to-day practice, that a small amount of benefit cannot be taken more because the problem associated with are very intense. Next, please. Now, there is another form of radiation therapy in which we call it hypofractionated variety. Hypo means you are giving less. It means, suppose if you have normally giving, suppose to any patient 30 fractions. So here in this, you will not use 30 fraction, you will reduce the fraction. It will be 10, 5 or 20 like that. Number of fraction is going to reduce. And once you are reducing the fraction, automatically you have to increase the dose size. As I told you in normal, the dose size is 180 to 200 centigrade. But here you have to increase it to more than 200. It will be 300, 500, 600, can be anything depending on situation. Now, what happens when you are using hypofractionations, you are finishing the treatment very quickly. The treatment which was going for, supposed to finish in 1.5 months is now going to finish in hardly say 1 month, half month, 2 weeks like that. So your early reactions will be less. Before any reaction comes, patient is out of the treatment. So very easy to use. But at the same time, if you are increasing the fraction size, the late reaction increases because the late responding tissues, they have more damage, you can say. So they will have more reactions. So it is always a balance. Whenever we talk about radiation, what fraction we are using, you have to balance it. You have to always think what type of tissue you are treating. What is it early reacting tissue? Is it a late reacting tissue, or what are your surrounding environment in which you are treating? If you are treating in an environment which is have a very uh, early reacting tissues, then you will be very conservative in using hyperfractionations, or you are using in an environment where there is a late responding tissues, then you will be very conservative using hypofractionations. So all different types are there. It all depends on your decision, your environment, in which environment tumor is there. Another type of course, which was called split course, was also tried by some investigators, in which they divided radiation therapy in two parts with a gap. The aim was that the first part of radiation was delivered and there is a gap, and the patient will recover, and then again patient will have. But it is not so popular, obviously, because the more you protect your treatment, the more chances of local failure happens. Next, please. Brachytherapy, I have already told you there are different methods, there are different radionuclides available like radium. Radium, although it is a historical one now, nobody uses radium. It is mostly cesium and iridium, and then iodine are being used depending on different situation. There are dedicated brachytherapy machine, as you can see. These brachytherapy machine can push the radionuclide source directly inside the tumor site with the help of catheter, and then you can give the radiation. The good aspect of brachytherapy when you are talking about as a treatment modality is, as it is a very small source of radiation and it goes directly inside the lumen or inside the tumor site, it gives radiation from within inside, and the area of radiation is very small. So even if you have a very critical structure in the vicinity, you are able to deliver a high dose of radiation, or you can say intense radiation, in the tumor site from within, which sometimes becomes very helpful. So this is one of the also a way of delivering radiation therapy. Next, please. So, as I told you, in cases of brachytherapy, since the distance is small because the radiation source is within inside the tumor, so reactions are less, the area of radiation will be less, and you can easily deliver radiation from the within inside. But there are lots of limitations for brachytherapy. That's why it becomes not so popular. Problem is that many sites are inaccessible. It is very difficult to put catheters in those sites. And suppose if your tumor in the vicinity of any bone, then again it becomes difficult to put such in such situation, put any catheters or radiation source and then treat. So, and as we know, in cases of head and neck cancers, the head and neck region is so complex. So a big, or you can say a good expertise is needed to put such catheters in place in different situations, in different tumor site. And that's why such expertise is lacking in most of the peoples, and it becomes very difficult in different clinical situations, and its use becomes limited with only some expert hand. Next, please. Now, when we are talking about radiation, it can be also talked about as per energy. We were talking about as per fractionations. As per energy. Next, please. Normally, when radiation therapy started, it was a very primitive machine which was able to deliver in a kilovolt range. We called it orthovolt radiotherapy. Now, orthovolt radiotherapy is nowadays not utilized except for skin tumors because it doesn't penetrate. It's just penetrates the superficial layers, and it is having such a physical activity. Whenever there is some interface like bone and soft tissue are present in vicinity, then there will be a problem of dose distribution. The dose distribution will never become homogeneous, and that's why this orthovolt radiotherapy is now limited for only skin tumors nowadays. And the problem with the inhomogeneous dose distribution is also causing some osteoarterial necrosis, which you must have heard in the in your time. But nowadays it is mostly historical. But still, this orthovolt radiotherapy causes so much of problem, and it is now being not used. Next, please. Next comes super voltage. Again, it has some skin sparing effect. It goes up to 1 MV range, but nowadays nobody uses super voltage also. And our all machines, what we are using now, are in the mega voltage range. Mega voltage range is the common in cobalt was average M4, somewhere around 4 MVA. But today's the accelerator, they are very high energy machines. They have 4 MV, 10 MV, 18 MV, 15 MV, up to 25 MV is present in the machine. So you can very well judge that so much penetrating are these nowadays radiation beams. Next, please. So the machine can deliver different forms of radiation. So what I have told you is as per dosing distribution, fractionations. Then there is technique, how you are going to deliver your radiation to the patient. So accordingly, there are 3D CRT or three-dimensional conformal radiotherapy. It can be intensity modulated radiotherapy. It can be image guided radiotherapy. It can be in a proton setup, intensity modulated proton therapy. And this radiation therapy can be used in a surgical setting as well. So it can give you effect of surgery, like scalpel-less surgery, we call it, or stereotactic surgery, or fractionated stereotactic surgery, like SBRT is also there. Then it can be used in the intraoperative setting during surgery itself, where you can put the source directly and then you can treat. So it is called intraoperative radiotherapy. Next, please. So as I have shown in this slide, that the previous machine is cobalt, which was have many limitations, delivering only a single energy. And nowadays the modern linear accelerator are having multiple energies of photons like 6, 10, 15, then electrons 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. These are different energies. And so these machines are capable of treating every type of tumor, every type of techniques can be used on these machines, and they are in short called all-in-one machines. Next, please. This happened due to the introduction of the multi-leaf collimator. This is device, what you can see in your screen is a multiple leaves which are placed in the path of the beam. And these leaves, they move independently and they can create irregular shape. Now we know the head and neck tumors are not so regular. It is irregular structure and we cannot assume it to be a regular one. So movement of these leaves can create irregular shape, and as per your tumor shape and size, the beam can be shaped. Next, please. In 2D, the normal radiation is a square or rectangular shape. In 3D, if you put a block, it becomes irregular. And nowadays we talk about IMRT, IGRT, where you can vary the intensity. It becomes intensity modulated. You have a varying intensity at different place. Next, please. So you can see when you put a collimator and you have a square shape in between a window through which radiation comes, it is a classical one when we are talking about the conventional radiotherapy or form. Next, please. Now this multi-leaf collimator, as I have shown you in the previous structure, it is induced. It creates a irregular structure and you can conform the field. So as per your tumor size, you can give three-dimensional conformal radiotherapy. Next, please. Now, in this situation, now the machines which are present, these multi-leaf collimator become dynamic. Every second they keep on moving under computer control as per your program. So different place receive different intensity, and you can now plan different dose at different site at the same setting. So intensity can be varied, and that's why the term comes intensity modulated radiotherapy. Next, please. Now, just to give you what it means on patient. So you can see in this patient, it is a rectangle shaped structure which we have put. It is called conventional form of radiotherapy. Next, please. So in conventional form of radiotherapy, there will be a tumor site, there will be some normal tissues in the vicinity, and you are putting a square or rectangle shape. And that's why you are not only treating that cancer, you are treating the normal tissues. And accordingly, you have more side effects. Next, please. Once you put MLC or multi-leaf collimator, you can shape your beam. Once a beam is shaped, next, please. You can see now you have an irregular shape of beam. So you are treating mostly the cancer cells and normal tissues are spared. This is called three-dimensional conformal radiotherapy in a simpler way. Next, please. Now, suppose if you put different beams from different directions, say 5 beams, 9 beams, or 15 beams, and that too in a small segments or part, and that too you are varying its intensity. So beam will deposit at small unit, and ultimately they will combine together to give you the different effect. Next, please. So, next, please. Next, please. You can see once you apply this form of radiation, you have a very sharp dose distribution around the cancer cells, and the normal cells, even if they are present in the vicinity, they can be spared. So this is a very important development in the delivery of radiation therapy. Next, please. Next, please. So if you have a critical structure like in head and neck tumors, like spinal cord is there, parotid is there, so many organs are there. So like one of the also very important is the pharyngeal constrictor, which give rise to so much of problems. So you can save those organs, you can conform your radiation therapy, you can conform your beam around the critical structures. Next, please. So even if a tumor is like C shape or D shape around the critical structure, like suppose some tumor is surrounding the spinal cord and you are treating that tumor, you can conform your beam in such a way that it will give you a C shape or D shape or any irregular shape without affecting the normal structure, say spinal cord, which is very important. So you can form any shape with these radiation techniques. Next, please. Uh, Now, when we are talking about the conventional, the older form of radiation therapy is based on theory that you plan the definition, you plan the volume, you put the patient, and you put the beam, and whatever distribution is coming, either it is high or low or irregular, you have to accept it because it is in a forward direction happening. You are planning the things and you are executing it and you are getting the result will be inferior, of course, because there will be irregular distribution, because our body is not normal. There is somewhere depression, somewhere elevation, so tissues are missing or there are excess of tissue somewhere. It cannot be uniform. Next, please. In IMRT, it becomes absolutely opposite what we are seeing in conventional form. So it is called reverse planning or inverse planning. So here what we do, immobilize, acquire, simulate, and then we put the result in your planning goal that we want this form, this much of radiation therapy or this much of dose to the tumor because it is going to respond with this. We don't want this much of dose to the parotid or any organ or spinal cord. So our goals are fixed and then it is executed. So things go in inverse direction or reverse direction. So it is called inverse planning. Next, please. So conventional is you are giving a solution and you are taking a result, which is not so good. Next, please. Inverse planning, you are giving the result and then you are arriving at the solution in the inverse direction, which is always perfect. Next, please. So I will give you a visualization of what happens when you execute such type of plans. Suppose a patient is there and you are executing a conventional plan. You can see on your screen the green part, the green and different color part is there, yellow, green. So those are representing the radiation. So you can see the spinal cord is passing in between the radiation part, the parotids are there. So if you are irradiating any patient of head and neck cancer by conventional plan, don't expect that your normal organs will get spared. Your parotid or will be fired. You will have an excessive dose to the spinal cord, and therefore you have to curtail your treatment. Your pharyngeal muscles will get very high dose, and it will be too much of toxic to the patient, which we see in normal cobalt therapy and day-to-day therapy when we are talking about patients. Next, please. Suppose we now plan same patient with 3D conformer. Now you are conforming it with the MLC. You are conforming, making the beam irregular. So once you make the irregular beam, that beam conforms around tumor. So you have a more good distribution of dose, but the situation not changes much. Because suppose I take an example of carcinoma tongue. Tongue is a central structure and the parotid is on the both side directly. When you are putting a beam from the lateral side, the beam is going to pass through parotid. So even if you conform your radiation beam around tongue, you cannot avoid the parotid. It will cross. So although it conforms the beam, still it will not give you a good distribution of dose. But it was somewhat better than the previous one. Next, please. Now, if I go ahead, same patient, same setting, but with IMRT plan. Now, you know IMRT plan gives multiple beams from different direction, varying the intensity. Here, you can shape the beam. Beam can be shaped in and around the critical, not critical structure, sorry, means your target, saving the critical structures. So the area of interest get a very high dose. The normal structures are spared because they receive a very less dose, those which are in the tolerance range. Every organ has a tolerance which it can tolerate. So it is within the tolerance range. Next, please. You can see one example of nasopharyngeal tumor. You can see in this cut of CT, there is a temporal lobe in the surrounding, the eyes you can see visibly up, the brainstem is there. So the area is lying well within surrounding or vicinity of critical structure. So if I try to put a conventional beam here, it will cause a great damage to the surrounding structure. But if I go with the newer generations, IMRT or IGRT plan, you can see the dose is confirmed very well around the tumor site, sparing surrounding structure. Next, please. This is the same lower down. When we are coming down, again, you can see the spinal cord, the parotid, it is very well spared, but dose is conforming in and around the target region. Next, please. Same patient, suppose if you are irradiating the lymph node stations also in the neck, you can see the spinal cord is in between. Still, the dose is taking a C shape and it is not irradiating with a high dose to the spinal cord, and it is taking care of the different lymph node station as well. Next, please. This is an example of carcinoma tongue. Again, you can see the dose distribution in and around the tumor site with sparing of spinal cord as well as parotid. Next, please. Nowadays, see, previously, if you remember in your previous OPDs, the older days, there will be some patients who will be coming to you with a history of some surgery, some chemotherapy, and also sometimes radiotherapy. Now, once radiotherapy is delivered, it is usually said that 3 to 5 years, in a safe setting, 5 years, you cannot give radiotherapy because radiation dose remains. The changes which has happened due to radiation remains there. So you cannot again irradiate such patients. It becomes difficult. So now, once you are utilizing this sophisticated form of radiation therapy, you can re-irradiate patients. It is now possible with newer generation of machine, even in head and neck patients where situation is such a complex. Next, please. After this, I will tell you another development which has happened. which is called image guided, or you must have heard image guided radiotherapy. Now radiation therapy is happening for 1.5 months. So naturally, even if with a good immobilization, some setup errors are there, then some organ motion happens. There are some intrafraction motions which is happening, which gives rise to some form of error if you are using same plant on daily basis. Next, please. So if you have a moving target, if you have a problem of positioning, or you expect a tumor shrinkage or expansion, or you think that your surrounding will change, your anatomy is going to change, you can use image guidance. Next, please. So nowadays the machines are equipped with CBCT, which is called cone beam CT scan, a arm which is present in the same machine. So in the same setup, it takes image of the patient and give you verification. You can fuse the image, you can reduce the error, and then you can make necessary correction and you can treat. And it is so quick, within few minutes it is finished. Next, please. Then there is another type, you can say, which is called arc therapy or rapid arc therapy or volumetric modulated arc therapy. Here, instead of giving radiation from the fixed angle, which is called step and shoot, your machine rotates 360-degree around the patient. So it can utilize different angle and put small beams like a fan shape inside, and radiation can be very well conformed. So it is another development in delivery of radiation. Next, please. Now, stereotactic radiotherapy, as I told you, you can reproduce the action of surgery. You can have such type of setting in which you can give a very high dose and have radiation therapy in such a way that it gives you effect of surgery. Next, please. In similar setting in other body sites, we call it stereotactic body radiotherapy, where in few fraction you achieve the effect of radiosurgery. Next, please. Although in head and neck, the structures are very fixed, it is not widely used. But in other sites, suppose we are treating lung or liver or some other site where there is a problem of organ motion during treatment, because patient is going to take breath and organ is going to move. In such cases, nowadays, there is availability of breath gating. You can gate your breath of the patient, and in certain, you can say, setting, the treatment is delivered. So it is such type of setting that there are some different setups available. So the machine switches on at particular, say, inspiratory phase or expiratory phase based on your setting. And at that particular phase, the radiation is delivered. So it is switch on, switch off, switch on, switch off, like that as per breath. And you can reduce the organ error which is happening due to organ motion. Next, please. Now, I will come to the situation in which radiation therapy is being delivered to the head and neck cancers. So it can be in the setting of preoperative radiation therapy. So here, normally, suppose if you have a setting where tumor is such that you feel that you cannot operate it. It is very difficult to operate due to infiltration of surrounding organ or fixity, and it becomes very difficult for you to operate. In such cases, sometimes preoperative radiations are used. Preoperative radiation is that you are giving little lesser dose in a normal fractionation schedule, so that somewhere around, say, 50 gray roughly, you deliver in 4 to 5 weeks to the patient, so the tumor will shrink and it will become operable. So here, due to inoperability, you are still able to take care of tumor. It will not expand. You have given a radiation, tumor has shrink, it has become inoperable to operable. Then bulk is reduced and lymphatics are blocked by radiation. So dissemination will become less because it will create some fibrosis in and around the vasculature. Then it will also eliminate the microscopic spread. So in a way, sometimes in some setting it becomes advantage. Next. But at the same time, before coming to post-operative radiation, I will tell you there are certain disadvantages associated with pre-operative radiation because it requires again expertise. Radiation will cause some amount of fibrosis. So, although it has been seen that now with the expert hand people, surgeons who are expert, who are already operating in such situation, they can easily operate. Sometimes I get a feedback that the plane of surgery was very fantastic after radiation. So it happens, it depends. But many people, many surgeons do tell that due to associated fibrosis, it becomes difficult to operate. I cannot achieve R0 resections. So there are advantage as well as disadvantage, because suppose after post pre-operative radiation your time period increases, the more you increase, suppose patient has developed some reactions and you are not able to operate and you have given time, the more length of time increase, you will have more fibrosis and the more difficulty in operating such patient. So there are some advantage, some disadvantage, you have to take care of situation. Now, the second one is post-operative radiation therapy. In this situation, normally if a surgery has happened, so you can irradiate such patient after most commonly 4 to 6 weeks of excuse me, of surgery. So same way here, normal fractionations are being used, and roughly about 55 to 60 gray, somewhere around in this range, radiation being used for the primary as well as the nodal site. Common indications, we always know T3, any T3, T4 lesion, high grade histology. If you have a perineural or vascular invasion, you have a concern about the surgical margins, or you think that during post-operative, during intraoperative period, you find that the tumor was more infiltrating, and you may find sometimes in your histopathological section a positive or closed margin. So in those situations, it is indicated. Next, please. Also, when there is a nodal involvement, you need to give post-operative radiation therapy, or in situation where there is an extracapsular involvement around the nodes, there also you are require post-operative radiation therapy. So the advantage is it allows you for a complete surgical, histopathological, and biological evaluation of tumor, because you have done the surgery beforehand. So there is no radiation therapy beforehand. You have done directly the surgery. So there is no unnecessary fibrosis present. So you can have a complete evaluation of histopathological specimen. You know the tumor size, you know the tumor status, you know the infiltration, you know everything. There is no compromise in also oxygen supply or blood supply is also maintained. You, and for us, the advantage is once I have such type of patient, I know the extent of tumor, because if you remove such type of tumor, I know the extent, its boundary, the area of involvement. Now, the problem, the disadvantage with this is sometimes delay happens, because the ideal time I already told you is 4 to 6 weeks. So sometimes there is some complication during surgery, the wound never heals, or some there is a discharge from the wound, and you cannot start your radiation therapy, and the treatment delays. So this become disadvantage. Or sometimes there is too much of scarring in the operated region. And we all know once there is too much of scarring, the oxygen supply will be less. And radiation therapy always relies on oxygen. Oxygen supply should be best, because radiation utilizes oxygen during its effect. So lesser oxygen, lesser effect of radiation. Next, please. So re-irradiation, I have already told you, nowadays it can be done with radiation therapy when there is surgery is not possible. Sometimes salvage surgery you cannot be done due to deep infiltration or the surrounding environment, and you are unable to perform surgery. There also you can do re-irradiations. or some metastatic disease, or sometimes node happens to appear in the neck. In such a situation, it is suppose involving the carotid sheath or any vascular structure, or it is very near to your spinal cord and you are unable to operate due to its fixity. There you can use the re-radiation or localized radiation as well. Next, please. So the effectiveness of radiation, as I told you, it depends on total dose. The more dose you use, the more will be its effect. But at the same time, if you use very high dose, side effect increases. So it's a balance between, you have to see your environment, you have to see the surrounding structure, and accordingly we decide about the total dose. And sometimes the effect of radiation is increased with the use of chemotherapy, which is used concurrently, which we call concurrent chemoradiotherapy. Here it blocks, acts as the chemotherapy agent, acts as a blocker, or it blocks the cell cycle in a particular stage. And the tumor cells, they mostly accumulate at the radiosensitive phase, that is G2M, and the number of killing increases. So it acts synergistically along with radiation therapy. Now, if you delay in starting your treatment, as I told you, the ideal time is 4 to 6 weeks. You have a relative increased risk of locoregional recurrence. Now, there are certain situations due to toxicity, sometimes treatment interruption happens. So if you have more number of treatment interruptions, your control rate will fall. And as radiation is dependent on the oxygen supply, so anemia also hampers. Then smoking also hampers, because it produces carbon monoxide, which displaces oxygen, and we need oxygen to have the effect of radiation. So smoking also hampers the radiation effect. Next, please. So in general, I will give you in general a quick look what you should look, and you can understand that this patient needs radiation therapy. So radiation therapy as a standalone therapy can be used for any early tumors. If you are concerned about the organ preservation, if you are concerned about the cosmetic effect or cosmesis of the patient, so any early T1, T2 disease, radiation can be used as a standalone. For oral tongue, very small tumor or floor of mouth, lip. So here, as a external radiotherapy or combination of external and brachytherapy can be used. So it can be used as a standalone therapy in early stages. Next, please. In post-operative setting, whenever patient is operated, because most of the cases you are going to receive in late stage as per our surrounding. So there are definitive indication which you must remember. Please click on, which is first one is the positive margin. Please click on next, please. Click on positive margin. The multiple nodes, if the present, any extracapillary node extension is present, then these are called definitive indication. Definitive indications means if any of these are present, margin is positive, node is present, extracapsular extension is there, 100% your patient is going to need radiation therapy after surgery. There are certain lesser indications like lymphovascular space invasion. Next, please keep on clicking. Then perineural invasion, perineural spread, or single encapsulated node. So these are called, or any thick tumors, bulky tumors. So these are although lesser indication, because sometimes even your tumor is early, but you are seeing these. In these, they are called lesser indications. So normally you have to now weigh the risk and benefit again in these situations. And normally it is advisable, even if you have these situations, you should go for radiation therapy, because it is going to only give benefit. Benefit is more, although there will be always some side effect, but that is nowadays not so long term. So you can have a benefit of in these lesser situations or lesser indication as well. Next, please. Now, We all have read in our textbook so many complications of radiotherapy. Like there are some early complications, there are some late complications. The early complication like fatigue, hair loss, radiation sickness, mucositis, loss of taste, xerostomia, dryness of mucous membrane, skin reaction, candida infection, hematopoietic suppression. Now, all these, whatever you are seeing on the screen, was present in the era when we used to have less sophisticated machine where targeted radiation was not there. Now, in today's era, the radiation is targeted. So you don't see all these things directly. You will see the reaction only at the site where radiation is happening, not at the distant place. It means suppose you are treating a tongue cancer, you're not going to witness a hair fall. It will never happen. But yes, if you are treating some mandibular region, you will have fall of beard. This will happen. If you are treating, if if you are treating, suppose you can say neck region, there might be some erythema, there might be some darkening, but it is temporary. Candida, if a proper oral hygiene is maintained, so nowadays we don't see much. But if oral hygiene is poor, Candida infection do happen. Hematopoietic suppression normally in head and neck cancer doesn't happen very commonly, but it happens when you are treating long bones like that. Now, again, if you take the late effects like xerostomia, skin changes, osteoradionecrosis, retinopathy, hypothyroidism, there are so many in the list. Again, these were from the older era when there was radiation was not targeted. Now it is a targeted radiation. You can save your priority. So permanent xerostomia never happens. Skin changes, the intense fibrosis or we call wood-like effect, it doesn't happen because we are not using the older ortho voltage radiotherapy. Nowadays, radiation therapy is skin sparing. Same way, osteonecrosis never happens nowadays because we are not using the ortho voltage radiation. Radiation is homogeneous. You can confirm it. So most of the things which are listed are the historical ones. Nowadays, lesser and lesser you see. Only you are going to see at the site where radiation is deposited. Next, please. So what precaution you have to advise to your patient? As usual, good oral hygiene, balanced diet, brushing of teeth, mouth hygiene, jaw opening exercises, then integrity of teeth. And it's very important you ask your patient for any dental checkup before subjecting the patient to the radiation therapy, as if they have do sometimes have caries or something loosening of teeth, so immediately in post radiation period you cannot take it out, you have to give at least 6 months. So you should take care that whenever patient is subjected for radiation therapy, you have to take care of any dental problems beforehand. Next, please. Now, the common things what we always tell the patients that avoid spicy food, do not drink very hot, very cold. It will create more mucositis. Don't take any sugary snacks. It will cause more opportunistic infections. Have good mouthwash. Rinse your mouth. Then ask about any medication. Clean your teeth. Have a proper oral hygiene. These are the normal tips which you always give to your patients. Next, please. Thank you. I think it was a long one. Now you can ask your questions.
Uh, Dr. Rajiv, that was a fantastic session that we had. Thank you so much. There are a few questions that are there, and it should be, I know we should be very happy to know that, many people from all over India have joined actually. So we have many head and neck surgeons who have joined, Dr. Deepak Khanna from Mumbai, Dr. Sunil Christopher, Dr. Bino Augustine from South, and many, many more. Dr. Amit Dhawan was also there. I mean, for a minute, we were wondering whether it is Amit from Amritsar who was sharing the screen. So, shall I read out the questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the question from Dr. Deepak is that the role of palliative radiotherapy for an entry non-resectable nodal mass and upfront radiation therapy as a treatment modality for borderline cases in T4.
Okay. So I will come with the N3 one.
Yeah.
Problem with the N3 nodal mass is that normally the critical structures is the area of concern. So palliative radiation therapy, when you are saying, it means you are not going to have a curative intent. So it depends on situations. Suppose you have a situation where you think you can cure the patient. It is not in a palliative setting, but you have a N3 node. In such situation, you can utilize the recent advances of radiation therapy by conforming radiation with the IMRT or IGRT technique, and you can go very well posterior in the posterior triangle, taking care of your N3 nodal status. You can deliver higher dose in the curative setting as well. That is one way. I don't know the exact situation of the tumor, but suppose if you want to treat in a palliative setting. In a palliative setting, what you can do is you can utilize the electron beam therapy, which is a very excellent modality present in nowadays. Electron beam therapy deposit radiation in the superficial region. It has a dose fall off. So it deposit energy in the node and falls off. There is no exit. So you can very well take care of your nodes with the electron, and even in a re-radiation cases. So that you can utilize.
Okay, thank you. We have Dr.
So,
Lata also
hello,
from Cochin.
hello. Sir,
Yeah,
Dr. Swapnil.
Swapnil, yes, go ahead, Swapnil.
Sir, wanted to add in this. I think for N3 nodal masses, which are what we should think about is the patient is operable or not. In case of if the patient is borderline operable, we should always try for a surgery. First thing should be surgery. If we can't resect it, if we are sure on the scans, depending on the scans, then only we should plan for a either a radical CTRT or a palliative setting. But if in case of a borderline, first we should always plan a surgery, because if post RT we in these borderline cases we actually cannot operate for all these N3 nodes.
I 100% agree with you, Dr. Sofit.
Yeah.
See, whenever you have a bulky tumor, the dose of radiation is directly proportional to the bulk of the tumor. So when we talk about around 50, 55 gray, we are talking about only microscopic disease.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When we are talking about N3 status like 5 centimeter, 8 centimeter, 10 centimeter mass, you need radiation
66,
in the
70.
range of 70, 75
Yeah.
gray, and you can
Yes, sir.
very well understand it, how much toxic it will become.
Yeah.
So it is always and always advisable. You have a bulky mass, reject it. How you first go for surgery if possible, and then only come back for radiotherapy for the residual mass or microscopic disease.
Yeah, that was the what that is what I was telling.
Yeah, correct, 100%.
Yeah.
So Shruti Gunashekhar wants you to elaborate on stereotactic radiosurgery, and if there is fractionated stereotactic, and if there is fractionated stereotactic radiotherapy also.
Yeah. See, radiation therapy, as I told you, normally is given in a fractionated version, like 200 centigrade or 2 gray per day is delivered over 6 weeks. Now, radiation has a tumor biology. If we say 8 gray in 1 fraction, if we say 20 gray in 5 fraction, if we say 30 gray in 10 fraction, although it sounds different, but they are same. So radiation ultimately depends on time, dose, and fractions. So in radiosurgery, what we are doing, we are giving extremely high dose in a single shot, but nowadays it can be given in few different, say 3 to 5 shots also. The definition has changed. So you are giving intense dose to the tumor site, and you get an effect as if you have surgically removed it. What happens that when you deliver a very intense dose to the tumor rapidly shrinks and it goes off. So in your subsequent treatment or your CT scan or PET scan, what you do, you simply see it has disappeared. The problem with the stereotactic radiotherapy is you need a very good equipment, means latest generation of linear accelerator or gamma knife. Then you need a very good image guidance, perfect immobilization, and a very expert one. So you can have a stereotactic radiosurgery for a single fraction. You can have for a 3 fraction or 5 fraction also nowadays.
Okay. Dr. Manjari Charpe wants to know, she's a ODMR resident, PG. She wants to know if parotid sparing is done during radiotherapy.
It is always 100% nowadays done. Parotid sparing is done. See, parotid was the major concern during head and neck radiotherapy every time. I will give you, you are a postgraduate student, so for your benefit, I will tell you the 3-4 important points what every people are concerned when we treat radiation, when we treat head and neck site is, one is the parotid, second is the pharyngeal muscles, third is the spinal cord. These three are very important structure because all your morbidity in post radiation period comes due to these xerostomia, swallowing difficulty, all these problems are there. So now what I have shown you, the different techniques, these techniques are made such to spare these normal organs so that minimum amount of radiations are absorbed in these organs when you are delivering high dose. And there is called what we call tolerance dose of radiotherapy for each and every organ. Every organ has a tolerance dose. So if you keep your radiation dose within the tolerance limit, the organ never have permanent changes. So in case of the parotid, you will never face xerostomia. So we do spare parotid in our day-to-day radiotherapy.
Thank you. We have Dr. Deepak Khanna from Mumbai. Deepak, can you come on, please? Could you ask your question?
Hi. Hi, sir. I just wanted to ask him, what is the role of a radiation boost in cases of an isolated metastatic disease, probably an isolated bony met or a visceral met, So what do you think about, and, sometimes we send patients who come with a isolated metastatic lesion, say in the spine or the iliac region or in the femur, whatever, in some kind of a skeletal area. And some patients really do well after that boost of radiation to that area. So what is your take on that? Just wanted to ask you.
See, the normal practice previously was that the moment we used to have a metastasis distant from the primary site, we used to say that it is a palliative and most of the people immediately change their intent to the palliative one and they will irradiate in the palliative setting for quality of life. But nowadays, the vision has changed because most of the patient or some of these patients at least, they do well after treatment. So nowadays, if you prove that you have an isolated metastasis, say one metastasis, single metastasis or oligometastasis at some site, we do go for curative setting. We can plan depending on the size. We can go in a single shot like a stereotactic radiosurgery. We can go for SBRT where we can plan for 5 to 10 fraction. But ultimately, what I'm trying to tell you that nowadays we can try for cure of this patient, means we will try to dissolve this tumor, not just palliate it.
Okay, thank you. We have Dr. Garvita Sahu. She asks, what is the role of preoperative radiation therapy in unresectable tumors of the infratemporal fossa? That's a very tricky area to operate.
See, the problem with the infratemporal fossa is that it's very difficult to get a margin from there. You have a very tight situation and most of the cases they do fall in inoperable range. So you can think of preoperative radiation, as I told you, it will give some shrinkage. But if you will see the literature, you will find there are not very encouraging results which you see in the infratemporal fossa range with the preoperative radiations. Because even if there is some shrinkage, you find very difficult to convert a inoperable to operable. So I don't know how much it is going to help, although radiation technique is available where you can deliver a preoperative radiation in this area. You can confirm it. You can have a very well conformal radiotherapy in this region. So there will be some shrinkage. You can very well apply, but regarding the surgery part, I don't know how much this shrinkage is going to help you in achieving a R0 resection.
Sir, I want to add the comment. Hello.
Swapnil, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. In these cases, in this particular situation, NSCT would be the second option. What I think, 2 cycles of TPF or two drug chemo, and then reassess after that, and we can actually get a better margin at that infratemporal region rather than operating upfront if we are not sure about our margins.
Yes, your comment is absolutely correct. So instead of going with preoperative radiation, normally in day-to-day situations, the oncologists are more in favor of going for NSCT or
Yeah.
neoadjuvant chemotherapy, so that there is some shrinkage of tumor, it becomes operable, you operate and you go ahead with the post-operative therapy, which is
We have a study from Tata, sir, on the same topic. We have done analysis in which we have compared 2 drugs versus 3 drugs for these borderline resectable tumors involving close to the high ITF, just touching the lateral pterygoid muscle, and going above also. We have tried 2 drug versus 3 drug chemotherapy.
yes, absolutely correct.
We have Dr. Sunil Christopher, who has complimented you for your presentation. Thank you, Dr. Sunil. We also have with us Dr. Lata Rao, who's a very noted Max Fax in Cochin. Do you have any suggestions or Lata? I think she's.
That was a very good presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Lata.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Lata.
I just logged in to listen to whatever is there radiotherapy because I'm not into research treatment.
Okay.
So I'm a listener.
Okay, thank you, Lata. Athar, there's one last question before we take a break. Actually, I mean, we'll call it a day. Athar wants you to tell us about systemic radiation and the role in oral cavity cancer.
See, I will like to clarify one thing. Radiation is never systemic. Radiation is always and always localized. Whenever you are talking about radiation, you are talking about localized radiation, because you are not going to inject anything in the vein. Keep aside those pharmaceutical agents for some specialized setting, but you are not going to inject anything in the vein which is going in systemic way, and you are having radiation therapy all over the body. So radiation therapy you are putting at a particular place, particular site. It is always a localized treatment. And in head and neck cancers, it is a localized normally tumor, and you are utilizing this therapy in different forms, as I have already told you.
Thank you.
Sir, do you?
Who's that?
Swapnil, sir.
Yeah, Swapnil, go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Do you suggest EBRT for T1 oral cavity lesions?
No, normally we keep reserve in T1 cases unless we don't have any indication which is very specific. As I have told you, that multiple indications comes, like you have a say LVI positive, PNI positive, so many
No,
things.
not for adjuvant, sir. Upfront.
Upfront T1 you can give. There is option
For oral cavity, sir. We that during the presentation you said that for T1 lesions you can actually plan for a EBRT, but I suppose that was for oropharynx or a T1 laryngeal lesions. What you were
utilized for
suggesting,
laryngeal tumors. Yes.
and not for
Yes.
T1 oral cavity lesions.
Not oral cavity, but people have tried in for lip tumors where they have put a direct brachytherapy implants.
No brachy, sir. I am talking about a EBRT.
No, EBRT is not utilized for oral cavity. It is mostly utilized for oropharyngeal and laryngeal tumors.
T1 vocal cord lesions. Probably.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv. May I request Mr. Amit to allow me to share the screen for a moment? I have a small task, and before he does that, I would like to inform our viewers that tomorrow we have a very interesting topic, that is management of oral cancer during COVID pandemic. So please do tune in. That will be again at 11 o'clock. It's a Monday, so we begin with our speaker who will be enlightening us from the UK. So please do join us. Can you let me share the screen, Mr. Zade, Mr. Dhawan?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, you can share from your
Okay. Okay.
app also, sir.
Okay, fine.
The screen share option is there. Sir.
Yeah, I know. So it's a small task for me. It's a big task for me, but a small token of appreciation for Dr. Rajiv. Thank you, sir. And this is a token of appreciation from the Central India Academy of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. Kindly accept this certificate. It will be sent to you by WhatsApp or email.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And viewers, please do tune in tomorrow at 11, right? Dr. Satish would be taking great pains to log in at 5:30 GMT to enable us to see that at 5:30 AM GMT, to enable us to see it at 11 o'clock. So thank you so much. And I thank all the viewers. My special gratitude to Dr. Rajiv Srivastava for sparing his valuable time on a Sunday. And of course, American Oncology Institute and Nangia Specialty Hospitals for having this collaborative efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.